Okay. Hi, my name is Calliope Leucthetis. We're at St. George in Clifton today, doing an oral history on the Greek diaspora and your Greek American experience. So if you can start by stating your name and then.
My name is Dr. George Scordilis. I'm first generation Greek. My parents were migrated from Greece. My dad was from Kerikira, Corfu, and my mom was from Chios. Dad came during the Second World War, served in the American Merchant Marines, and that was the easiest way of access of getting citizenship back then. Mom came later on in the late 40s, met dad in Philadelphia. There was a proxenio, of course, as those that don't know, there was a set up arranged meeting for them to meet. They met in 1949, got married in 1950, and I was born in 1952, February 13th. Uh, Two miscarriages from my mother, so I'm an only child. So I was very, very close with my cousins, my first cousins. I grew up in New York and mostly in Queens. So my first cousins were like my brothers and sisters. And our family was very, very close. Every Sunday we had Sunday meals together. We went to church together. We went to the same church. So there was always a family bond, which I think is lacking in today's society, unfortunately. But that really made my character, made me who I am. And then I had my older cousins who kind of took me under their wing and made sure that I didn't get in trouble. And if I was getting in trouble, they made sure that I didn't get in trouble again. So they were like the police force for my father and mother, making sure that I stayed on the short and narrow road,
Mhm.
which I appreciated. Not at the time, but I appreciate it now because they kept me away from certain things that were not going to be good for me if I got involved. So.
So how was it like living in Queens, you said, right? With
Yeah,
your Greek community?
it was a pretty big Greek community. I went to a Corona Church and Transfiguration of Christ. So that our lifestyle was really centered around the church. I was a Boy Scout, I was a Goya, our activities were around church. Mom and dad knew nothing about baseball, so any sports we played were in the neighborhood sports. I never was on any official team till later on when I got into college, but everything was centered around the church. Our lifestyle was family, church. It was pretty interesting, but when I went to kindergarten, I didn't speak any English at all. So the first day in kindergarten, I'm in a school which is predominantly American speaking children, and I'm not understanding one word they're saying. So I came home and I said to my mother, I said, we're in a different country. They don't speak our language here. I don't know. So my dad heard that. And over a year's time, he saved up his money so he could buy me a TV so that I could start watching TV because he owned a restaurant, worked anywhere between 16 to 17 hours a day. So my mother was always speaking Greek to me, so I only spoke Greek. I didn't speak English. I really didn't speak English probably till towards the end of my first grade. I started to really pick up the language.
Mhm.
So I kind of feel for the immigrants that come to this country and don't speak the language and how hard it is for them. But, our parents back then, encouraged us to learn the language and encouraged us to immerse ourselves in the American culture, but also keeping our Greek roots and our Greek foundation. And so I think it was a beautiful blend. I grew up first generation Greek, like I said, so a lot of the traditions and customs are just like they were in Greece for me. That's how I was brought up. And I've tried to pass them on to my children who are second generation Greek, but they haven't married Greeks. So, but certain customs and traditions they follow through. Obviously, the language has gotten lost after me because my children didn't marry Greeks, so they don't speak Greek. Neither did my children. So,
Yeah, that's really interesting. So can you talk about your father's experience coming over here and trying to make a life for himself, I guess, through the military?
Dad was really left his home when he was 8 years old from Gedikida. He was the oldest brother. So he was sent to his uncle's vegetable store in Athens to work
Mhm.
and to, send money home back to help raise the other brothers and sisters. At the age of 14, he went and he signed up. He joined well, not the Navy, but he was going with the ships to different ports. And he worked first as a rooming boy, and then he learned how to be a chef and a cook in the ships. And then At the age of 21, he married a French woman, had two daughters with her, and they were together for about 8 years. And then one day he came home and she was gone with the girls, and they never were in touch or communicated with each other. And then he came into the States when he was in his early 40s. And then from there on, we started a new life. So last time he saw his mother, he was 24 years old.
Oh,
So he hadn't seen his mother for the rest of his life. So, and he only had her till he was 8, and then he had left the house also. So it was a hard life. It was not an easy life for them. On the other side, my mother was brought up in a Orthodox home. My papa was a priest, Orthodox priest, came from a family lineages of priests. So she grew up very faithful, very strong in conviction in her faith. She was the one that was in charge of taking care of Papu's rasa, ironing him. So she only had like a third grade education. And then she kind of dropped out of school. And her responsibility as the older sister was to take care of the brothers, make sure she did the wash, she did the cleaning, she did the ironing, she did the cooking. Of the girls, there were 3 girls. My aunt there, Lefteria, was the only one that really got an education. She became a ophthalmologist, and she got married at the age of 20. She lost her husband at 21, never to marry again. And my other aunt got married later on in her life. So the girls were always delayed in getting married in the Kaluta side, and my mother's side.
mhm,
The men got married a lot earlier. From my mom's side, all the men except for one no, two had migrated to the U.S., had spent some time in the U.S. My one uncle was a physical therapist. He came, studied here, went back, and then the other ones were restaurant owners
mhm.
and spent about 40, 50 years of their life here. And then 2 of them died here, and then one migrated back to Chios. My dad's family we didn't really know because they really didn't get along together, the brothers and sisters. So he only got along with one brother, and his one brother sent his 10-year-old daughter to live with us in the United States, so she became almost like my sister because they were having a hard time financially. So he asked my dad to help him. So my cousin Maria came and she lived with us, and she stayed with us till she was 17 when she decided to get married. So she married my first cousin on my mother's side, and she's my first cousin on my father's
Wow.
side. So we have a double Singenia, double relationship there.
Yeah.
And that was pretty odd to me back then for a 17-year-old girl to get married. But my grandma was my mother's mother was 13 years old when she married Papu, who was a priest. So back then, I guess they got married very early because life expectancy was a lot shorter too.
Mhm.
So they got married earlier. They started their families earlier. And, my mom used to talk about the war, how the Germans invaded Chios, and how because my papu was a priest, they kind of left the family alone. They took care of the family. Plus, we had olive trees, we had stuff, so the Germans would come onto our land, take whatever the fruits, the vegetables, and stuff. So they kind of left our family alone. So we were lucky. But she talked about horrors about the Germans, breaking into homes, pulling the men out, and shooting them right in front of their family, taking children, and that was pretty scary and pretty intense for at that time she was a teenager watching that happen
Mhm.
in her homeland. Dad really never talked about the war. He was in the World War II and as a merchant marine. He really never talked about his experiences. He really was pretty quiet. Dad. He didn't really like share. He started to share as I got older, but he died by the time I was 16. So we kind of really. So I would say the last year of his life, when I was 15 to 16, we started to have a good relationship. Like he was opening up, sharing. But that was the only time. Pretty much he was, pretty quiet. Worked hard worker, disciplinarian, no fooling around, you know. And
Right.
so I honor that and I respected that.
Mhm. Um, when he came over, do you know if he had anyone here
That
to help
sponsored him.
him? Yeah, that sponsored him.
I think he jumped ship. I'm almost sure he jumped ship in the port, and that's what they used to do in the old days in the 50s and 60s, 40s. They would come with the ship. The ship would either be in Philadelphia or any big port, and then they would take leave and never report back to the ship. And then they had family here or friends that kind of sponsored them and helped them.
Hmm.
And then I remember as a young boy, my uncle Alex, I must have been about 8 years old. I was in the restaurant working, and immigration came, and my uncle Alex ran out the back door because he saw them come in the front door, and they grabbed him, and overnight they deported him back to Greece. He was gone, which was pretty typical back then. If you were caught, you were deported immediately. You weren't given a trial or anything, so you were sent back, and that happened to my uncle Alex. Happened to a couple of my cousins, one or more of my uncles. So pretty typical back then.
Hmm.
So
Is that why you're? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to piece it together. Is that why your dad joined the military? You're
yeah,
saying?
so he can get citizenship.
Okay.
And that was the fastest way back then to get citizenship. If you served in the military, then you were granted citizenship after you finished your tour of duty.
And where did he serve?
He served in the Pacific. So during the Japanese thing, he was on a boat. He was a chef. He would cook for all the men on the boat,
Hmm.
and that's where he learned his expertise of cooking. And then that's how he decided, once he got on land, to open up a restaurant, like most of the Greeks did back then.
Nice. Okay. So have you ever visited Chios or
I've been to
Kerkira?
Greece many, many times. I've been more to Chios than Kerkira than Corfu because, again, I was closer to my mother's side of the family. So, but I have been to Kerkira a couple times. I love the island. It's a beautiful island. I have one cousin that I speak to that still lives there, and with her daughter, and two of her children have migrated to the U.S. So, but when I go to Corfu, I see her. With Chios, I used to have a lot of cousins and uncles and aunts, but now we have only one living aunt, and I have one living cousin in Chios, and then my other cousins are in Athens,
Hmm.
first cousins,
Right.
and then most of them are here in the U.S.
What can you say about the lifestyles between here in America and in Greece, where your parents are from?
Well, you know what? I think the lifestyle in Greece is better, less stressful. If you have a way of making a living and having money, you can have a better lifestyle in Greece. Uh, Education-wise, I would say it's better here for children because it's easier to get into a university, get into a program and stuff. Where Greece still uses this method of testing children, and say you tested for medicine and you didn't get a high enough score, then they would give you the option to either go to dental school or pharmacy school and stuff like that. The U.S. is much more broader. You have much more opportunities in education. If you don't get in the first time, you can reapply. So there's more education opportunities. Great U.S. If we could marry the education opportunities and the lifestyle in Greece, that would be perfect.
Hmm.
Because I love Greece. I have originally wanted to open up a practice there, but unfortunately, because of the crisis that's happened in Greece, we decided to back off and not go.
Hmm.
But that was my dream: live in Greece 6 months and come back to the U.S. 6 months.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really
So
awesome. Um, so this is like slightly switching gears. So what religious background did your parents have,
both were Greek Orthodox.
and how is it observed in the home, if at all?
Mom was more religious than dad. Dad was a holiday Greek Orthodox.
Hmm.
Easter. I remember him going to church on Christmas, but baptism, funeral, wedding. Mom every Sunday.
And do you think that's overlapped in your life?
That was great. Well, for me, that gave me structure. Again, my social life was scouting, was being in the altar, was Goya. So that kind of ingrained me in the Greek, culture even more. I went to Greek school. I went to St. Demetrius. I went to the cathedral first, and I went to St. Demetrius. But then when my cousin came from Greece, we switched and I started going to public school at fifth grade. But my first 4.5 years were in a Greek parochial school. And then I finished my last 2 years of high school at St. Andrew's Academy, which was also Greek parochial.
Hmm.
So, yeah, church really had an effect on my life. That's why I brought my children up in the church every Sunday, coming to church, Goya, whatever activities the church had, we tried to ingrain them into that because it was a great socialization progress, and it also was a great way to spread their culture. Their mom's not Greek, so it was a good way to keep the ties into the Greek community.
Hmm. So what is your role today in the church as part of the community?
Well, for me, as I've gotten older, I've appreciated the church more as a place of, quiet solace that I could come and just spend that hour and a half or 2 hours and just be in prayer and, thank God for all the blessings that He's given me. So, I mean, I carry that on in my private life too and in my home, but this is, as you look around, it kind of gives you a nice, peaceful atmosphere
Hmm.
of being able to expand your faith, and also, if we don't come to church, then we're going to lose our faith. If generation and generation and generation we start having less and less people come to the church, then the faith gets watered down, and we lose our faith. And as well as I know, Greeks were under siege by the Turks for 400 years, and our faith is one of the major reasons why we survived that. And if we could survive 400 years of being under Ottoman oppression, we who have the freedom to be able to practice our faith should practice it and should be glad and should participate fully in that opportunity.
Do you think it's slowly declining, the people coming to the church?
I think what you're starting to see is more mixed marriages in the church, and the one that is the Orthodox spouse has to be strong enough to be able to bring the other spouse into the church. I've seen it the other way where, you marry somebody that's not Orthodox and then you fall away from the church too. But I was blessed because my wife is Russian Orthodox, so we have the same faith. So it was easy for us to go to church because there really was no difference.
Hmm.
Whether we went to the Russian Orthodox or the Greek Orthodox church, it was still Orthodox. We decided to come to St. George when my oldest is 38, so when Peter was 8, because the Russian church we were going to, there was no youth programs or anything like this, so we decided to start coming to St. George because of the youth programs and immerse the kids more into the church, social life also.
Hmm. Nice. That's cool that you can overlap the Russian and the Greek like that. So how does religion play an understanding in your Greek heritage, if at all?
Well, for me, it's the faith first and then the heritage second, because I think without the faith, the heritage would have never survived. And as I said before, you also understand, being of both Greek parents, that 400 years of oppression, they could have squashed every tradition, and a lot of our traditions are Ottoman traditions.
Hmm.
A lot of the stuff in Chios, because Turkey is so close to Chios. I mean, if you really want to put a distance, from my mother's island to Chesme is about a half-hour boat ride. So that's why we have a lot of migration coming through Turkey to Chios, because it's so close. So to me, it was the faith that kept us strong and allowed us to keep any of the cultural traditions we had. So to me, the faith is the key part, because once you lose the faith, the culture can always be wiped out,
Hmm.
in generation to come. But it's the faith that keeps us strong. I think that's the glue that unites us, that keeps us together.
Hmm. The
So
faith, you mean?
yeah.
Okay, cool. Um, so what are you most proud of in respect to your Greek heritage?
I'm proud of being a Greek. I'm proud of my family. I'm proud of the foundation that was given to me, the ethos of the hard work, family, respect, my religious culture and traditions, all that played a role. You know, anytime you're molding something, you take like a piece of clay, you're adding a little more water and stuff. So I think all those things were part of the thing that formulated me to be who I am today. I can't say one was better, greater than the other. I think it was all put together that made the final package. And that's what we tried to offer our children too. You know, they also have they've also have the Russian tradition and culture and the Greek. So on Christmas Eve, we follow a Russian tradition where they have a Christmas Eve fasting Lenten dinner. So we follow that, but then we also do our Pascha, our Easter. It's the Greek Easter. So our kids have kind of gotten the blend of both. But I think that makes them even stronger and, stronger for who they are because it's important. It's important that you put all that together.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and that's what's missing in today's culture. These kids don't have that. They don't have parents that have. You're talking third, fourth generation Italians. You're talking so the lineage has gotten so watered down, and the faith has gotten so watered down that they have really nothing to anchor to. So we're lucky because you're what first generation,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, we're lucky because we still have that tie. I don't know. We can have this conversation, 20 years from now and see where your grandchildren are going to be and where my grandchildren are going to be. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that they have it. But, we're bringing them up, even the grandchildren, in the Greek way. I mean, their parents are teaching them how to dance Greek. They want them to learn how to speak Greek. They didn't want to learn how to speak Greek when I had a Greek teacher, but now they want their children to learn how to speak Greek. So, we try to keep it together.
Right. That's nice. So the last three questions are kind of like broader questions about Greece. So what do you think is the biggest challenge facing Greece today?
Well, politically, I think this guy we have, Tsipras, is totally disenfranchised from the faith. He's a socialist. He's an atheist. He doesn't believe in God. He doesn't. So, to me, right away, that takes away the strength of Greece because Greece has been founded and based on its strength of faith and religion. And I think that Greece has been protected all these years because of its faith and its religion. All these monasteries, all these monks, all these nuns praying for the country, praying for the people. And when the country was more faithful, the country was prosperous, and as the country has slowly moved away from becoming faith-based, moving away, and as you see, I think the Greek Orthodox, Greek Americans are much stronger in faith than the Greeks of Greece. At least the young generation. I'm not going to say, your papa or your yaya, but, your generation Greece compared to your generation here in the U.S., I think the kids here are much more faithful. Because the parents, when you're taken away from your environment, you kind of yearn for it even more. So now, when you're a metanasti, when you're taken away, now you try to clamp on and hold on to those roots of what made you being a Greek.
Mm-hmm.
So Greece is a beautiful country. I love it, and I wish it the best. But on the road and the path that it's traveling right now, I'm worried. I'm worried for the country. I hope that God protects it and brings back somebody in power that's a faithful person, because we're not on a good path, unfortunately.
Do you think it's just due to Tsipra's inabilities, or has this been?
I think it's watered down. It's gotten watered down over the years. Not only Tsipras, I mean, you could go down, you could go back 20, 25 years. You can't have a you can't have a culture in which, I always say that when you take the Greek out of Greece, he's the most productive human being you want to meet, hardest working person and stuff. But part of the Greek problem is some of them are lazy. You can't retire at the age of 45 and have a full pension.
Mm-hmm.
And have the government now support you if you're going to live to 80, another 25, 35 years. It's hard. The system doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's a broken system. And now we have all these refugees coming in. We had the influx of Albanians. We have jobs are not there for the Greek worker. the, the country's constantly giving out and not getting anything back in. It's hard to survive.
Hmm.
But again, beautiful country, one of the best, to me, one of the best countries in the world. If we could sell our sun and the beaches, we'd be the richest country in the world. But we can't do that.
That's a good way to put it. Selling
Yeah.
stuff. So the next question is, what do you think? What's your reaction towards the ongoing conflict with Turkey and Greece?
Again, the Turks never liked us, and I'm not a big fan of the Turkish government. Never have been. That's why sometimes I yell at my cousins because, they go across the way to Çeşme to go shopping in Turkey, and then they come back, and I said to them, "Why do you go spend money in Turkey? I won't even buy Chobani yogurt because maybe it's stupid, maybe it's silly, maybe it's no. I won't frequent any of whether it be a Turkish restaurant, whether it be a Turkish yogurt or anything. I mean, sometimes I'm crazy. If I see clothes that I like it that says made in Turkey, I'll put it back. I'm not going to support a government that wants to annihilate us and make sure that we never exist. So I can't. And I think the conflict is going to grow. I think, the Muslim population is growing and the Christian population is shrinking. And unfortunately, and again, not all Turkish people are bad. I think if you take the Turkish farmer and the Greek farmer, they just want to work their land, grow their family up, raise their children. It's the politicians that create this chaos that's going on. But I'm worried for Greece. I'm worried because as we get weaker and they become stronger militarily, economically, and stuff like that, then I don't know what's happening. I mean, they test us every day. In Chios, they fly over every day. The Greek army in Chios is always on guard, always prepared. I mean, in all those islands along that whole coast, if you take Samos, Mytilene, or all those countries, they're always on high alert because you never know.
Hmm.
I mean, they're already telling us that certain islands that are Greek they're telling us they're Turkish islands. I mean, they want them, and it's just a matter of the time of them trying to take them. So
Yeah,
we have to pray for them.
for sure. So the last question is, do you have anything else that you like to talk about your Greek American experience that I may have not?
My Greek American experience. It's been a ride for 66 years. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it. I've been proud to be a Greek. I'm also proud to be an American. My dad used to get mad at me because, when I was younger and people would come into the restaurant, he used to say to me, "Oh, what are you?" And I used to say, "I'm Greek." So a lot of times he would pull me in the back and say, "Well, look, you're of Greek heritage. You're not Greek. You're a Greek American. And because of America and the way that America operates, I was allowed to come into the United States, create a business, have success, have money, and you live the lifestyle because America afforded me the opportunity for you to live the lifestyle. So you should be proud that you are Greek and your parents are Greek, but you also should be proud that you're American also." So I'm proud of both. Now, if Greece was playing America in a soccer tournament, I don't know. I'd have to vote for both. I don't know. Probably deep down inside, I would want Greece to win because they would be the underdog, but I'd want Greece to win.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming.